Hi, I'm your host Joe Fagan, and welcome to this episode of Discover West Orange. This monthly program, sponsored by the Downtown West Orange Alliance, is dedicated to raising awareness and preserving our rich local history. I'm here at Colgate Field at the Ginny Dunkel Pool. In 1964, a young girl stepped onto the world stage and won 2 medals. Ginny Dunkel was only 17 years old and a senior in high school when she participated in the 1964 Olympics in Tokyo, Japan. She returned home a West Orange hero. Following her return, there was a parade down Main Street on Ginny Dunkel Day in November of 1964. Today we're here to honor her the 50th anniversary of her amazing achievement. So stay tuned and join us today on Discover West Orange as we talk to Ginny Dunkel and discuss her Olympic glory. I'd like to welcome everyone to today's ceremonies at West Orange's Ginny Dunkel Pool. As you are likely aware, this swimming pool was named after Ginny, who as a 17-year-old West Orange High School senior won 2 medals in the 1964 Summer Olympics in Tokyo, Japan. Certainly, this is a notable achievement for any athlete. But what you might not be aware of is how truly extraordinary the magnitude of this accomplishment was for Ginny Dunkel. This year marks the 50th anniversary of Ginny's amazing feat of Olympic glory, and I'd like to take this opportunity to briefly share her story with you. Ginny grew up in West Orange and lived on Fairview Avenue with her parents and 2 brothers. By the 1950s, her family were members of the former St. Cloud Swim Club, once located on Pleasant Valley Way. Their family would spend summers there, but Ginny was always afraid of the pool and the water. She was only 9 years old and didn't know how to swim. Had fate not intervened, her life may have taken a different course, and we might not be here today. One summer day in 1956, her father unexpectedly tossed Ginny into the pool. Ginny was yelling and screaming, and it caused quite a stir. She had to literally sink or swim. She quickly realized that she was in no danger because the water was only knee-deep. Perhaps a trial by fire, but she soon realized that she actually liked the water. Before long, she joined the St. Cloud swim team. And you might think this is where her swimming career took off, but it didn't. She was not focused, undisciplined, and easily distracted at practice. In fact, her parents even tried to discourage her from continuing swimming and suggested that she find another interest. But for whatever reason, Ginny decided to stick with it. Things changed for her when the swim team hired Frank Elm as their new coach. He was perhaps the first to realize that Ginny had a natural talent for swimming. He saw her potential and taught her discipline and helped develop her natural ability into refined techniques. Under his guidance, Ginny became a contender with a strong work ethic. She soon learned that the more she achieved, the more she believed in herself. And as her confidence grew, she began to set goals for herself. By 1963, after several years of competitive swimming, she found herself at the U.S. Nationals in Cleveland. Lane 3, as I recall, Ginny. Remember, at age 9, she didn't know how to swim. But in Cleveland that year, at age 15, she set a world record in the 200-meter backstroke. She was a relatively unknown, but also participated in the Pan American Games later that year in Sao Paulo, Brazil, where she won a gold medal as part of a medley relay team. A year later, Ginny had qualified for the U.S. Olympic team and found herself at the 1964 Summer Olympics in Tokyo, Japan. She was only 17 years old and a senior at West Orange High School. Going into the 64 Olympics, she really expected to win a gold medal for the 100-meter backstroke. Instead, she came in third and won the bronze and was devastated by her inability to capture the goal. When they were placing the bronze medal around her neck on the victory stand, she was crying. But they were not tears of joy as most would have expected. Instead, she was crying for not winning the gold. Fortunately, Ginny had also qualified for the 400-meter freestyle at the 64 Olympics and had 2 days to prepare for the event. Her coach told Ginny that every swimmer there, including herself, was in top physical condition, and that the key to winning was not physical, but only in the mental preparation. Ginny thoroughly grasped this concept, and it became her advantage. She visualized the race while going over every move and turn in her mind. Ginny profoundly knew at the start of the race, even before hitting the water, that she would win, because she was totally mentally prepared and focused. This time, when they hung the gold medal around her neck, she was crying tears of pure joy. She had not yet graduated from West Orange High School, but amazingly won 2 Olympic medals. If Ginny's father had not tossed her in the pool to sink or swim, to overcome her fear of water on that summer day in 1956, her real potential may have never been known to the world. Ginny's timeless lesson for us all is simple. No success is final, no failure is fatal. For there's no triumph without tears and no victory without pain. Athletes will come and go, heroes will be remembered, but hometown legends will endure forever. With the deepest measure of pride possible, please join me in welcoming home West Orange's Ginny Dunkel to the West Orange Ginny Dunkel Pool.
Thank you, Joe, and thank you to all of you for having me here today. I can't tell you what an honor it is for me to be back here, back home in West Orange. Although I've lived in many other areas of the country since I left here as a child, I never quit thinking that West Orange was home to me. And I have to tell you, this pool, this whole area, the pool itself and the outlying area and the new pad you have behind me is absolutely awesome. It's terrific, and to think that it's 50 years old, that's hard to believe, because you, as citizens of West Orange and the city, have done a fantastic job keeping this pool up. It's really terrific. I thank all of you for coming here today and supporting this. I was told to make it brief. Joe Fagan just actually gave my whole speech for me. So, but one important thing that I'd like to get out to all of you young swimmers over there that are getting ready to compete, wave your hands. All right, how many of you are 9 years or younger? Anybody? Raise your hand if you are. You're already one step ahead of where I was, because I wouldn't even dive in that pool at your age. So you're doing great. My career started exactly as yours is right now, just through summer swim teams at the St. Cloud Swim Club. And it was 2 years of that, and then from there I went into winter swim teams, and eventually my career started to take off. But I started just like you all are right now. So if you have high goals for yourself and big desires, lots of determination, and the willingness to work hard, you never know what you can do. Don't ever give up. Again, thank you so much for inviting me here. This is truly, truly an honor to be up here, and I've already run into so many people that I haven't seen in 50 years maybe, and it's been terrific. So thanks again, and let's enjoy the activities.
Hi, I'm Megan Brill, Executive Director with the Downtown West Orange Alliance. We're very excited to be sponsoring Joe Fagan's TV show, Discover West Orange. We hope that you'll learn something more about Main Street and come back and enjoy some of the great things we have to offer downtown.
We're here today at the Ginny Dunkel Pool with a very special guest. Please welcome to the show, West Orange's own Ginny Dunkel. Ginny Dunkel, welcome back to West Orange.
Thank you, Joe. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, now, I want to briefly talk about your career and recap it now. You grew up in West Orange. Where did you live?
I lived at 117 Fairview Avenue. Moved there when I was 3 years old.
You know, coincidentally, our cameraman today is actually from Fairview Avenue, too. I don't think he lives at 117. Now, as the story goes, you were 9 years old and your family were regular members at the St. Cloud Swim Club, and you didn't like the water. What didn't you like about the water?
I guess basically I was afraid I was going to drown, and I had never really been in a swimming pool aside from a little backyard round pool, and I was scared. And it wasn't until my dad said enough is enough, because we literally spent every single day of the summer at the St. Cloud Swim Club. My mom would take my dad to work, and then my brothers and I and she would go down. We'd spend all day there. We'd cook out when he got back from work, and I never once got in the water. Finally, my dad said, "This is ridiculous. You need to get in," and literally picked me up, threw me in the pool. The water was about this deep, so I wasn't going to drown, and I realized, wow, I can actually be in a pool and not drown. So
that really started your career, but I had spoken to you a few years ago, and you had told me that when after you realized that you liked the pool, that you really were undisciplined and unfocused once you started swimming, and your parents even tried to discourage you from swimming. What made you stick with it? Was there something that you liked about it?
Actually, what made me stick with it was we got a new coach. The coach that we had, great guy, but we used to, some of my friends and I shouldn't probably say this, but we used to sneak out of practice. It was at the Newark Athletic Club. And we'd go in the locker room and we'd play games in there and goof around, and right before practice was going to be over, we'd sneak back in the pool. So we swam maybe a total of 5 or 10 lengths during the whole practice. And it was a pool where there was no spectator space, so my parents couldn't watch practice, and they didn't know what was going on. And I would swim in meets and continue to do very poorly, and so they thought, this isn't the sport for her. And that's why they tried to discourage me.
Of course, this all changed when Frank Elm, the new became the new coach, and he may have realized your potential, and he helped you refine your natural talent into techniques. And after a few years, you were swimming competitively, and I had just recently watched the 1963 Nationals in Cleveland. And I believe there were about 10 swimmers. Now, you had mentioned that you had been swimming competitively prior to the 1963 Nationals in Cleveland. Tell me a bit about that.
I swam, my first national competition was in '61, and it was in Philadelphia, which was about 2 hours drive for us to go to. And I remember competing in the backstroke against a girl named Chris Von Salsa, who competed in 1956 and '60 in the Olympics, and she was one of the big heroes. And I remember being in the backstroke, I'm in the lane, I'm getting ready to start, and I looked over, and there's Chris Von Salsa right next to me. So every bit of confidence and everything I had just went right down the drain. And I kind of was a big flub in that race, but then from then on out, I competed in each. They have an indoor winter nationals and an outdoor summer nationals each year.
Well, it's absolutely amazing to me. At age 9, you didn't know how to swim. In 1963, you're 15 years old, and I believe that was a 200-meter backstroke.
Yes.
And when that race began, you never looked back. You had the lead early on, and it just increased, and you were a relative unknown swimmer at that point. But not only did you know how to swim, here you are, age 15, and you set a world record. What do you remember about that?
I remember that in particular because it was also the qualifying event for the Pan American Games, for '63 Pan American Games, which were in Sao Paulo, Brazil that year. So I knew that I wanted to make that team. My coach had gone over a lot of goals with me. He was building up my confidence. He had me believing that I could make the team. We hadn't talked about world records. That just kind of happened, but I think it did because I was so excited about the race and pumped up for it and confident that I was going to do well in it.
Well, that certainly must have been exciting for you, especially going from West Orange to the adventurous place of Sao Paulo, Brazil. And you won a gold medal there in the relay medley team, I believe, and you also qualified for the U.S. Olympics. Now, you were only a senior in high school. And although it was the Summer Olympics, they weren't actually played till October of that year. What was it like in September of '64 when school started and you were Ginny Dunkel and you were going to the Olympics? Can you tell me what your classmates might have thought about you in high school at that time?
Well, actually, I'd never actually started my senior year until after the Olympics were over, because they took us right from the trials, which were in New York City, right out to California at that point. That was in August. So I spent the last half of August and September and the very beginning of October out in California training with the team. And then when I got back after the Olympics were over, which was late October, that's when I first went back to school. And my classmates were, well, the results that I got were something that I never expected. They were wonderful. They were so excited, and I just didn't expect that. But they, you know, before that, I was a female, and I was doing a lot of sports, and females didn't do a lot of sports back in those days. So I didn't really get paid a lot of attention to because of that. After I came back, everybody was pretty excited.
Well, I hadn't considered that. Certainly that would have been a terrible distraction for you, starting school and leaving. But let's go back to Tokyo 1964. Now, that certainly goes without saying. That must have been exciting and adventurous. And at the opening ceremonies, what do you recall about the opening ceremonies that year?
I just recall that it was extremely, almost awe-inspiring. You know, it was like, I can't believe I'm actually here and I'm actually walking out on this field with all these other athletes, not just from the United States, but all over the world. It wasn't like the opening ceremonies, nothing like you see today. You know, the showmanship has changed so much, but and now the athletes walk out with cameras and they're clicking everything and recording it themselves, which we, of course, didn't do back then either. But it was just it was the beginning of an extremely exciting 2 weeks in Tokyo.
Now, as I recall, Bob Hayes was also part of that 1964 Olympic team. He participated in track and field. Now, you had won a bronze medal, and you were extremely disappointed. Why were you disappointed in a bronze medal?
It does sound funny that I would be, but my goal when I went to Tokyo was to win the gold medal in the 100 backstroke, because I held the world record in the 100 backstroke when I left for Tokyo. And so obviously I felt pretty confident about it, and that was my goal. The 400 free, I was just lucky to make the team in that event. So I hadn't even really considered that event. I was thinking only 100 back. And I lost the race by 0.3 of a second between first and third. Kathy Ferguson from the States was first, and a girl from France was second. And yes, I was very disappointed because that was my whole goal, was to win that medal. So after the race was over, one of the coaches knew how I felt, and he spoke with me, and he said, you are in just as good a shape as any other swimmer here. You've worked just as hard. Any swimmer in this 400 free could win that race. It's the swimmer who is going to be mentally prepared for the race that can win it. And I was a dark horse. Nobody expected me to do anything in it. Marilyn Ramanowski from Arizona was the one they expected to win. But I spent 2 days and literally just went through the whole race in my head. I knew where I wanted to be on each turn. I knew where I wanted to be right after I dove in the water. And then I knew exactly where I wanted to be at the finish. And when I stood on the block, I was nervous, but I was extremely confident, and I I knew, might sound a little egotistical, but I knew at that point that I was going to win the race.
Well, I think that's confidence, and I think that's probably what it needs. And you probably saw this as a second chance to win the goal. And Marilyn, I think, came in second, and the third place winner, I forget her name.
Terry Stickles.
But all three of you actually were from the United States. So when you stood on the podium and you got the gold and they played the national anthem, it must have been incredible, incredible.
It was.
Now, that was in October. November, you come back. They have Ginny Dunkel Day. There's a parade on Main Street. We're in the field house of Colgate Field here. And this is where ceremonies took place in November of 1964. What can you recall about that, Ginny?
Well, I recall a lot about that day. It was just such a wonderful day. I had, as I said earlier, I had no idea the reaction that I would get from not only my classmates, but all the citizens of the town. They were just so excited and gracious and happy for me. And the day of the parade, I was very shy back in those days, and so I thought, oh no, I have to stand on a parade float, and go in front of everybody. And then when I found out I had to give a speech at Colgate Field in front of hundreds of people, I almost passed out. But but the reaction that West Orange and the citizens had for me was really overwhelming, and it was wonderful.
Well, we're certainly in a conference room here at the rec department, and we just came in from outside, and there's easily a crowd of a couple hundred people out there. And the reception today, I mean, everyone wants their picture, everyone wants their autograph, wants your autograph, and it must be really refreshing to think that 50 years later that you're still fondly remembered in West Orange here. Now, this pool opened June 2nd, 1967. And it's certainly named the Ginny Dunkel Pool in your honor. And what was that like for you to have a pool named after you, especially after you left town and you know that the Ginny Dunkel Pool is still back there in West Orange?
Yeah, it's just been almost surreal that I tell people in my hometown, well, I'm not a person to brag about what I've done, so they find these things out, but they found out I had a pool in my name, and everybody was very impressed, very excited, and for me, it's wonderful, and it's wonderful to see it here again today and what fantastic shape it's in, how well it's been taken care of, and also how much it's used. It looks like it's very heavily used, which is terrific.
One thought weighed heavily on my mind. My wife and I met in high school, and of course went to the prom together. Now, in 1965, did you have any problem finding a date for the prom with your Olympic notoriety?
Not really.
I imagine they were lining up. Ginny, you have your gold medal and your bronze medal with us here.
I do.
I'd like to. She just happens to keep them in her pocket and have them handy. Now, this was the gold medal that was actually presented to Ginny at the 1964 Olympics in Tokyo. And if I had Olympic medals, I would probably carry them around with me too. I think I asked you this early, Ginny. Do you actually remember receiving them, or was it just a blur?
I remember receiving the bronze because, as I said, I was not real thrilled with my final performance. The gold I was so excited and thrilled that I got a gold medal. That's a little bit more of a blur to me, yes.
Now, of course, you left West Orange shortly after you graduated in 1965. You currently live in Missouri and made the trip here today. Well, Ginny, on behalf of the Downtown West Orange Alliance and Discover West Orange, I want to thank you today for taking the time to come on the show and doing this interview. Hopefully we can preserve your story for posterity. And thanks so much, Ginny. You're always welcome. You are truly West Orange's hometown girl.
Well, thank you, Joe. And I want to thank you and everybody in West Orange for being so terrific today and always, and making me feel, I'm just so proud of this town and what they've done and accomplished in the pool and in supporting me. And I'm really happy I'm here today. It's been wonderful.
Well, let's come back in 50 years for the 100th.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
So.
Thank you. This is Joe Fagan for Discover West Orange, and I'll see you on Main Street. If anyone would like to contact the show, you can do so online. Here is my email address. It's very simple to remember, Joseph Fagan, my name, @westorangehistory.com. Or if you prefer the old-fashioned way, you can contact me via the Downtown West Orange Alliance at 66 Main Street in West Orange, and of course that's the same address as West Orange Town Hall.